dating trans girls. Dating trans girls and dating trans girls is not like dating cis girls a lot of the time, because there's a lot to unpack with us. So I can know this from being a girl who transitioned, who has been in relationships and dated, and who has dated all kinds of different people, and who has dated, including a trans girl. And don't expect to walk into a relationship with a trans girl, if that's what you're interested in, and expect it to just be peachy, and then everything's just going to go wonderful, like it does with oftentimes with dating cis girls. Like I know from before I transitioned and dating women, that like it just kind of like worked naturally. It just happened and it was working. And I lost that largely because of societal issues, societal perceptions, internalized homophobia, internalized transphobia, and PTSD and trauma, oppression, being ostracized, you know, which is a form of oppression. And just like we get ostracized from our workplaces, we get ostracized from our families, we get ostracized from our friends, we get ostracized from employment, we get ostracized from all kinds of things, right? You know, on top of being discriminated against, on top of being, you know, having been subject to things like being raped and whatnot, you know, like don't expect that there's not going to be all of this, all these issues and poor mental health that you're going to have to disimpact to make something work. And I can say that from experience. For example, I get really, really clingy. And the reason why I get really, really clingy is because I have been through a lot of shit. So when I find something that works, I'm kind of like, thank God. You know, and it sucks when it falls apart and doesn't work. So I'm kind of like overzealous. I'm kind of like, too much. You know, I'm like Cassie from Euphoria or something. And it's really like it's really like a lot to disimpact. And one of the things another thing you have to like think about a lot of the time too is applying a level of understanding and compassion, which is really hard to do in that moment. Like when you're in a relationship with a girl who transitioned, like in a relationship with me, and trying to figure out like why is it that I have been crying straight for the last half hour? You know, because of some stupid little small thing that I'm like ultra sensitive to, that I've been through and that I can't handle. It's like that. Like after you have been through so much, you know, and I can say that because I've known lots of trans girls. A lot of us have PTSD. A lot of us have poor mental health. You have to often ask yourself why, which came first? Like, which is the chicken or the egg, the poor mental health or the transition? Like, you could look at something like BPD and say, transitioning is a manipulative angle in the hands of a person with BPD who's not necessarily thinking clearly. And then you can say BPD may, you know, like things like BPD, bipolar, whatnot, can they not come about as a result of poor mental health and trauma? Some people would say yes, some people would say no. And so like, don't don't expect to just walk into a relationship with a girl in the transition and expect everything to be like the same as it is with dating cisgendered women. Because with cisgendered women, like cisgendered women have trauma, PTSD, and stuff like that from, you know, having been in relationships with men or other women and whatnot. But it's just not the same level of like waking up every day wishing that you were dead. And just life just becoming this drudge that you're just pulling yourself through. You know, like a large reason why a lot of us do sex work is because at some point in time in our life, we're often faced looking at that as a point of survival. I know over the last couple of years when I was not at work that there was one point where I was being denied income through the insurance company in relation to some of my issues, and they were paying me for 3 months in a row, right? And it was like, they weren't paying me 3 months in a row, and I was going to my doctor saying, you have to do these forms, and then my doctor was dragging his ass on it, you know, and giving me grief about it and negating what I'd been through at the same time. You know, just something as simple as going to your doctor and expecting everything to go along just peachy is again, you know, just a very misguided perception in relation to being a girl who transitions. You know, and I was like, how do I keep myself from going homeless? Because I do not want to be a homeless trans girl. Like, that is one of the biggest curses, you know, that can ever be placed upon you. Because, I mean, being homeless isn't intensely horrific enough in of itself. You know, it leaves you with stress and trauma and pain and suffering and permanent damage in various different ways. You know, even if you're not a girl in transition, but I don't know, a lot of the people who sometimes like call me out on the street are people who are homeless, right? So it's like even there's a hierarchy there of us with homeless people. You know, you look at a lot of us who are like very attractive girls, you know, and it's like they can get a date, they can have sex, you know. What they can't get is a relationship. You know, in my experience, I've had longer lasting and more meaningful relationships with women than men. You know, so the ones of us who are straight are in some ways kind of screwed that way. And I've also had very hurtful, cruel relationships with women since I transitioned too. But when you get into a relationship with a girl who transitions, you know, it is not the same as dating a cisgendered woman, where everything just works kind of like clockwork and things just kind of come together and gel easy, because there is ostracization from workplaces, families, friends, society in general, you know, all this internalized transphobia and self-hatred, and just the list is, you know, PTSD, rape is very common to us, especially with those of us who end up doing sex work. You know, there's all the stigma, you know, in relation to dating us. So a lot of people do things like, I don't want to be in a real relationship with you, but I want to be in a real relationship with you. So I don't want anybody to know that we are really in a relationship, and yet I still want to have and maintain a relationship with you. Just all of this shit like that. And it's very easy when you get thrown into that and you're in a state of being in love, that you're not being in a state of being love is being in love with the state of being in love. Right? When that state blows away, right? A lot of people just decide, oh, you know what, I'm polyamorous, I'm going to go chase it elsewhere. Because they're chasing that same thing. They're chasing that state of being in love, or that chasing that state of being in lust, or whatnot. It's a very one-sided, selfish point of view, which is different than something like loving kindness. Loving kindness would be much more of a, like, a compassionate, understanding point of view. And something like loving kindness, for most people who haven't experienced compassion, you know, tend to have to understand it intellectually. It's like people who have no sense of empathy. They have to understand it from an intellectual perception. And so, like, if you're somebody, a straight dude, bisexual dude, straight girl, bisexual girl, non-binary, trans man, trans girl, or whatever, you know, you're going to have to realize that when you jump into this situation with a girl who transitions, it's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be messy. Because there's just so much, like, trauma, depression, dysphoria, dysmorphia, self-hatred. You know, you were just not going to get into a relationship with your just average cisgender girl who works 9 to 5. Largely because we have a hard time finding 9 to 5. And if we do, once they find out, we usually lose it. I found with the girl whom I was in a relationship with, who was another trans girl, that one of the biggest issues was being somebody who is clingy and loves being in the state of being loved and wanting it to work, and, you know, just sort of like latching on and trying to, like, make this work as best as possible, versus somebody who was just like, I do not want to deal with the stigma. You know, I've been through enough. I don't want to be through more. And I've been through the same thing with, like, cisgender women, you know, where they're like, I like you, I want you to stick around, I don't want anybody to know. And on and on and on and on. One of the beneficial things I found about being in a relationship with another girl who transitioned was that there was no questioning of gender. It was just two girls in a relationship. You know, it's like when I hang out with other friends of mine who are other girls that transitioned. We don't question each other's gender. It's not a question. You know, maybe they question their gender sometimes. Like I've known friends who kind of like question their gender, transitioned, and that's all fair. But even in those situations, it's usually just lack of confidence and again, the same thing. It's like, you know, it's just like two women who are friends. And same with cis girls a lot of the time. It's just like it is hard, for example, to date cisgender women because I have a male skeleton. Right? And if I'm dating a cisgender girl, I'm kind of like automatically like shoved into the position of being perceived being of something like a top, you know, or just, and there's not really any top or bottom, there's just two people making each other happy in bed a lot of the time. You know, I don't know all the dynamics and whatnot, but, you know, and there's definitely like dysphoria that's involved with dating cisgender women. It's very, you know, if you don't know them or trust them or love them, it's very difficult. Long story short, if you're going to get into a relationship with a girl who transitioned, whether you're a straight dude or a cis woman or another trans girl or something, you know, don't expect it to not be rocky. Don't expect it to just everything to naturally gel and come together and work without a hitch, right? It is not like before I transitioned and dating cis women, you know, because there is no, it's like, why was I confused about my sexuality for so long, and still am, but there was no stigma associated to being with men, right? As long as they accept you, as long as you pass really well, you know, or people see you as being special and different and unique, this is a special, different, unique kind of relationship, right? But when it's like two girls who are in a relationship, you know, who both transitioned, wow, there's a lot of bloody stigma there. And I'm the type that just like, kind of like, I don't care. You know, somebody has an opinion about me, I will just shove my opinion back down their throat. You know, you want to stare at me, I'll stare right back at you. You want to hurl insults at me, I'll fucking hurl them right back at you. Right? But it's not like that with all of us. I know, and some people say that we are aggressive, including like within Thailand. Maybe to some degree that there's an element of truth to that, because, you know, who else is going to stand up for us, right? And after you've been through so much shit, after you've been dragged through the dirt so fucking hard, right? How are you not going to like toughen up? How are you going to walk out of that and not be a toxic person? At work today, there was some guy who clearly took an interest in me, and I think he clocked me, and he was kind of like hanging around and like trying to like strike up a conversation and just kind of wanted to be around me, because I think he's probably one of those types that is attracted to us. And I didn't get the impression that he was like a chaser. I think he was just one of those rare breed of guys who generally likes girls who transition for numerous valid reasons. You know, like we are, a lot of time while we are extras because we're beating it into submission. Or a lot of times why we're extras because, you know, we really want this relationship to work. And I just kind of like was like somewhat disgusted by it, because I was just kind of like, and it made me think of like what it is like to be in a relationship with a girl who transitioned. But I was somewhat disgusted by this, because I was just like, you have no idea. You know, this is just a sandbox to you. This is just a playground to you. You have no idea. You have no idea, and when it gets ugly, you're probably just gonna like wander off and go find something else to poke your dick in. You really don't care. Even if you find me special and unique and intriguing, and even if you admire me or something like that, you have some sort of admiration for me because of what we go through, or you know, how much effort we put into making it work. Like, you have no fucking idea. You know, you're basically here for one thing and one thing only. It ain't like you're gonna put a ring on it.